Today, we're going to talk about the differences between left bank and right bank Bordeaux wines. So basically, the location of right bank, left bank has to do with the rivers and what they call the Gironde estuary that comes in, brings the water in from the Atlantic, and separates, kind of looks like the flux capacitor when you check it out on the map.
This is what makes time travel possible. The flux capacitor.
Flux capacitor.
Into the Dordogne and the Garonne River. So the right bank are regions like Saint-Emilion, Pomerol, Lalande de Pomerol, Canon-Fronsac, Côte de Bourg. These are mostly Merlot-based wines, Cabernet Franc-based wines. And if you look at the map, they are on the right side of the Dordogne River. And one of the biggest differences, on top of just the grapes themselves, and grape varietals on the right bank tend to be more Merlot, more Cabernet Franc, is the soil, right? So in the right bank, you have a limestone sort of base, but you also have a lot of clay. And that's one of the reasons why Merlot is one of the main grapes on the right bank, because Merlot and clay do very well together. And what happens in terms of the wines is it leads to richer fruit wines, fruit-forward wines. Tannins tend to be a little bit softer. Not all of them, because there are some very ageable wines too, which we'll get to. So, for example, this is a 2019 Tetrasomenac. It's all Merlot based. It's Côte de Bourg. And Côte de Bourg, Côte de Bordeaux, Blay, these are all regions that purposely produce wines that are fresh, fruit-driven, fragrant, and meant to be enjoyed and kind of consumed on a young kind of basis. A lot of them just have a lot of inherent value. They're not all that expensive usually, like, this wine at 15, 20 bucks. It's really pleasing. It's really pleasant. It's mouth-filling. Fruit's there, lots of nice red, fresh fruit. Tannins are soft already. This is something that's coming out of the bottle, ready to drink. So then there's other areas within the right bank of the Dordogne, such as Saint-Emilion, Pomerol, which make some really ageable wines. So classification is another difference that we can talk about. So right bank wines, their classification goes into, in Saint-Emilion, Grand Cru Classé, Premier Grand Cru Classé, was done in 1955 and changes every so often, every 10 years or so. And so the classifications are a little bit different on the right bank than they are on the left bank, which we'll get to in a minute. So this next wine we're going to taste is a Canon Gaffier, and this is a Premier Grand Cru Classé. This is really one of the best Saint-Emilions out there. And I wanted to just differentiate, on a right bank perspective, the difference between, a Côte de Bourg, a early young wine, meant to enjoy in its early life, versus a Canon like Gaffier. And this is a 2019, really great vintage. This has a lot more complexity. Now this is about 50% Merlot, but there's also, 35-40% Cabernet Franc in this. They do a good amount of Cabernet Sauvignon too. So you're going to start getting some more black fruits, and you're going to start getting some more really intricate tobacco and exotic flowers and oak. These see more oak, and for that reason, they are more ageable wines. So this is just more intense, a lot more layers going on the nose. Yeah, that has just got beautiful acidity, much firmer tannins, much more notable tannins, which is what you're going to see from, the better Saint-Emilion, Pomerol wines of the region of right bank. So, right bank is again known for some of the more value-driven, but these Saint-Emilions, Pomerols are certainly some of the most ageable. And Petrus, one of the most expensive wines in the world, is a right bank wine that is Merlot and Cabernet Franc based. So that's right bank. Left bank. Left bank are all those names that we know, right? Margaux, Saint-Estèphe, Pauillac, Saint-Julien. Those are left bank, and they're on the left side again if you're looking at the map of the Garonne River. And the soils there are a little bit different. Still limestone on the bottom, but it's a lot of gravel. It's really rocky on top, and the vines have to dig. There's not as much, the clay holds the water, there's not as much water. And when those vines dig, it gives this great concentration, and Cabernet Sauvignon does really well on this left bank. So when you're talking about left bank wines, you're talking about wines that have more tannin, sometimes more acidity as well, but they're typically bigger, more ageable wines, which is why the 1855 classification, when you talk about the the Grand Cru Class A classification of first growth, second growth, third growths, Chateau Mouton Roche, Chateau Aubriand, all of these wines, these are all left bank wines, Cabernet-based wines. And this is a Chateau Belgrave. This is a 2016 fantastic vintage throughout Bordeaux, especially on the left bank. And this is a Haut-Médoc. So Haut-Médoc is the wider region that includes those big Margaux, Saint-Estèphe, Pauillac. So, grapes from all of those areas can be used in this wine, which, for lack of a better word, makes it a bit of a value as well. But this is a extremely serious, well-made wine that is Cabernet driven. They use Merlot, they use Cabernet Franc. You're going to find more Petit Verdot and more Malbec on the left bank wines. They use a little bit of on the right bank as well, but you're going to find more often than not they're going to, you can even smell a little bit of that Petit Verdot. A lot of these blending grapes on the left bank. And yeah, Cabernet Sauvignon, right? Black currant, black fruits, little hint of anise. Vanilla, maybe a little bit of new oak that's going on here. It's a 2016, so it's got a little bit of that aged underbrush, a little bit of that earthy and tobacco and mushroom note to it. It's a bigger wine. It's got a few years of bottle age. It's the 16, and the tannins are still chewier. The acidity is mouth-watering. The balance on this wine is tremendous. And this is a wine that could age easily another decade. I mean, both of these can, but just to sum up, the difference on the right bank has to do with the grapes, the Merlot, the Cabernet Franc. The left bank, you're talking Cabernet Sauvignon driven, the soils, the ageability. And then, the most fun part, go find some right bank, go find some left bank, do a little tasting of yourself, and find out which one is suitable for your palate. Cheers. Enjoy.